order the meeting of the Board of Education for St. Mary's County for Wednesday, August 26, 2015. Our first item on the agenda is a call to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, or legal property acquisition issues and student issues, Maryland Local Government Code Article, Section 9-512A, 1, 2, 6, and 10.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You get to sit closer together. Okay. All right, I'd like to reconvene the meeting of the Board of Education for St. Mary's County for Wednesday, August 26, 2015, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first board meeting since school went back in session.
Yes.
See how everything went. First of all, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is board reports. Ms. Lee.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk about the first day of school. And so I liked how this year at Great Mills, all of the assemblies and going through the code of conduct, that was all accomplished on the first day of school. And so that meant that on Thursday and Friday, there were normal bell schedules. So in class, we were able to do much more on the second and third days. Thank you.
Mrs. Weaver.
Okay, so for opening day, I went with Dr. Walker and I met Dick Myers at Spring Ridge Middle School. Had a fantastic tour of the newly renovated area and also the area that is going to be soon to be under construction. And then from there, Dr. Walker and I went to Park Hall, where got a fantastic tour of what was going on. It was Mr. Zerbiak, and I am sorry, it is a challenge to spell his last name for me. But the kids were so excited to be there. They were all settled in their classrooms. I have to say that the hallways were so colorful. They had, the bulletin boards were magnificent, just welcoming the kids. They also had like this, a palm tree. I think that's what it was. Am I right? There was a palm tree, yeah, and it said welcome. And then the fifth graders are doing a contest, and it's actually on behavior. So to see which class can, and I forget the name of the character, I apologize. What is it?
Class Dojo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Class Dojo. So to see, for behavior, and it's real time, and so I thought that was pretty neat. Then we went on to Piney Point. Once again, the teachers were all in there and already working with the students, giving them an assignment, and saw some new teachers in there, and they were very busy. They, very colorful classrooms, welcoming the students. And then we went to Ridge, back down towards my way, to go through there. Yes, and I guess they are proud to say you can stand in one corner and you can see the entire school. But it's very small but very welcoming. I have to say that I saw Mr. Butler at Piney Point, who is the maintenance person there, and Mr. Jordan, I think, was at Park Hall. They did a phenomenal job getting the schools ready. The floors were spit shine there, could eat off of them, I guess. But they did a fantastic job getting the schools ready for the students. That's always really important to make sure that everything is maintained. And and I thank Dr. Walker for driving me around, being my chauffeur. Had a great time going around to the different schools. And just one other thing, I was invited to a meeting for CASE. It's at the Tech Center. This is a new curriculum that is being done at the Tech Center this year. It's a 3-year program. It's called CASE. It's the Curriculum for Agriculture, Science, and Education. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because there's so many people in the community that are an active part of making sure that this program is successful. They have donated their time, their money, their resources. There's like Bruce Young from Soil Conservation, Donna Sasser from St. Mary's Economic Development Agriculture, Jamie Raley from the Ag Department, Tony Sinclair, who is many might know is a private farmer down in the 7th. I know that there were some other people also. I apologize because I don't recall their names at this point, but there's so many people that are integral part of this new program to ensure that it's successful. So that was my week.
Okay, just as Mrs. Weaver indicated, we did something a little different on the first day of school. We did not take the large entourage of people around. We did smaller groups, and I think from the feedback that Mr. Smith has received, it was very much appreciated, and it allowed more interaction between us and the students and the principals and teachers and things like that. I started my week at 2 open houses, Letty Dent and Margaret Brent. And I know that open house day is just a mass of chaos, it seems, for everyone. But I think that the staff had everything very orderly, and especially in the middle school, they moved students through very quickly. The elementary school, and everyone knew there was open house because there were like 1,000 cars around every single elementary school for that 2-hour time period. And everyone worked very diligently to make sure that students knew where they were going, what was going to happen when they got off the bus, and I think it's just as much for the parents as it is for the children, especially all those parents that are new to the school. So I'll just be very quickly, Mr. Smith and I started our day at Margaret Brent, watching all the 6th graders attempt to change classes between 2nd and 3rd period. We provided some locker assistance where needed. Then we moved on down to the 7th district to Dinard, and toured a few classrooms there, met several of the new teachers and the new media specialist. Then we were stalking Mrs. Montgomery and Mrs. Washington. We tracked them down in Chopticon High School's parking lots. Very easy with that big old New York Giants plate on the back. Then we moved on to Mechanicsville once again, that had an attendance bubble last year, and we had put some new teachers in there in order to alleviate that, and then finished up at White Marsh, who actually had a new principal this year. So everyone, we experienced lunch, chorus in the middle school, and if there was any doubt on what we did, just please follow Mr. Smith's Twitter account, because we were subjected to various school activities to post as he tweeted them out. So I thank everyone for all of your hard work. I know we probably were a little bit of a burden on Wednesday, taking some of your time away from your students, but we do appreciate it. So, Mrs. Washington.
Thank you. I also had a wonderful time on my first day of school visits. I toured with Miss Maureen Montgomery, who's our Deputy Superintendent of Schools. We visited Great Mills, Chopticon, Leonardtown High School, and Esperanza Middle School. It was a calm, it was a orderly, it was a clean day. I want to thank Dr. Walker. He's only been with us a couple months at the most. He did a tremendous job of making sure the school would open on time, the buses were running, students were fed, the buildings were clean and orderly.
Computers were working.
You're right. It's a whole laundry list of that side of the house, the support side of the house. Everything was right on track. And as I say, you hit a home run and the ball went out of the park. You did a tremendous job under your leadership. And I know any good leader thanks and give credit to the people who works for him. And everybody did a tremendous job. And on the academic side of the house, Maureen Montgomery, Students were learning, teachers were teaching, books were open, everybody was happy. It was just a breath of fresh air. It was brilliant. It was a wonderful example of what a first day of school should look like. There was no one in the office complaining. And actually, the offices were empty, so the parents must have known that they could work out any issues they had before school start, because schools' offices are open all summer. So if you have an issue, you can go and take care of it ahead of time, so you don't have to waste your child's learning on the first day working out issues. The teachers were tremendous, the paras, the nursing, building service workers. Everything was wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Montgomery, for going around with me. We had a wonderful day. And I just hope every day, the next 170-some days, will be just like that. So thanks to everybody, the academic side, the support side. You did a tremendous job. Thank you.
Mrs. Allen?
I like to say we went in pairs, not a posse this time. So it was a lot of fun. Dr. Marr and I toured. We started at Captain Walter Francis Duke Elementary School. From there, we went on to Leonardtown Elementary, Leonardtown Middle School, Evergreen, and Hollywood, and took the opportunity to visit some classrooms, see what was going on, but also was great hearing from the various principals who talked about what their goals for the coming year were going to be. And we certainly talked about how enrollment was going for them in classes, and how they were going to, or how they were dealing with any bubbles that were popping up. And we understand that happens all the time, and that over the coming weeks, some of that will begin to settle out, because as we talked about, a lot of places start school at a different time. So if you have people moving from another state especially, their thoughts in terms of where they need to be in place and when they need to be there are perhaps a little bit different. And so our official enrollment numbers are taken September 30th, and that happens across the state. So once we get past September 30th, we'll have a much better understanding of exactly how many children we have in our schools, and expect to be there for a period, some period of time. It was interesting. I went to a meeting at MABE on Monday, and several of the counties were talking about larger than expected enrollments. Montgomery certainly was, Anne Arundel by like thousands. So it will be interesting. I know that the state has a sense that we're have a declining enrollment that doesn't seem to necessarily be playing out as they believe it would be. So
Certainly not here in St. Mary's.
so I'm glad that everyone has gotten their school year off to a good start, and look forward to the coming months. Thanks very much.
Mr. Small?
I echo everything that has been shared. I am very proud to work with the people with whom I work. They're fantastic, and I do love the pairs, not posses. Going out in pairs and really giving you an opportunity to first interact with, our executive leadership, but then also to speak with principals and teachers and students. It's a little less intimidating. I think that went really well. We were all out doing all of our visits. We were all out running around frantically trying to make sure that Spring Ridge was ready to open its doors, and Captain Walter Francis Duke every little last bit, and every single teacher across the system as they got into their classrooms, and they personalized it. It really is inspirational to go into an elementary school and see the amount of time and effort and honestly creativity that goes into making those such fantastic instructional spaces. And the same is true in the middle and high school. It's just the elementary teachers. It's an art. It's an art. So it was a fantastic opening day. As Mrs. Allen has alluded, enrollment is up. We were projected to have about where we are when we add in our Head Start students. We're looking at about 18,150 bodies. So that's great. It's great news for us. We are a fantastic community. We're a fantastic school system, and people just come to us. We are a destination. So I had, just to kind of piggyback on some of the two presentations that we're going to have tonight. They're all fantastic presentations tonight, but the last two really do focus on supporting services and the multi-year plan, strategic plan for maintenance as well as capital improvement. I did have the pleasure of presenting at the Planning Commission earlier this week with Dr. Walker and Ms. Kim Howe and Ms. Hayden, and it was they spoke, as they often do, about how well we plan for and build and then maintain our facilities, and it's a testament to your wisdom in directing others and the work that they do, and certainly not to be left out, Ms. Tammy McCourt and Mr. Darrell Farrell in Fiscal Services and Human Resources. Were it not for their incredible work over the summer, we wouldn't be welcoming students back to staffed classrooms. So please bring back to all that have worked so hard. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.
All right. We're still having some technical difficulties over here. All right, so recognitions we've done, public hearing. None, okay. And that was on the policies that I believe Mr. Riddle presented 2 weeks ago. Public comment.
None.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First up then is the action item section J policies. This is the second reading with Dr. Ridgel.
Good evening, Dr. Ridgel.
Good evening.
I can get it, I'll get it on here.
Let's bring them up. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight is the second reading for two of the J policies. Both policies were reviewed by the school system attorney, as well as the directors in the Division of Instruction, the superintendent, the superintendent's cabinet. They were reviewed by the J Section Advisory Committee, which does include representation from numerous stakeholders, including directors, principals, assistant principals, supervisors, school counselors, school psychologists, pupil personnel workers, the Education Association of St. Mary's County, Collective Employees Association of St. Mary's County, and the St. Mary's Association of Supervisors and Administrators. The first reading for the two policies was held at the work session on July 23rd. The public hearing for these policies was held at the August 12th meeting, and there were no speakers, if you recall. The policies were also posted on the website, and there were no inquiries regarding them. So tonight I ask your approval for these two policies. First is JEA student attendance. This was revised to reflect the statutory change by the Maryland General Assembly. In 2012, the Maryland General Assembly passed, and then Governor Martin O'Malley signed into law Senate Bill 362 that essentially changes the age of compulsory attendance. So beginning with this school year, every student who resides in Maryland is 5 years old or older and under the age of 17 must attend school. That essentially means this raises the dropout age to age 17. It is no longer 60. The intent, of course, is to reduce the number of students dropping out of high school. This is very consistent. Several other states have already changed their dropout ages to 17 or even 18. The second one is JGBF. and that is the discipline offense codes and terms. On January 28, 2014, the Maryland State Board of Education adopted COMAR 13A 080111 related to student discipline. And the decision of the State Board was for all school systems to review their codes of conduct in the 14-15 school year based on new guidelines that had been developed by MSDE, the Maryland State Board of Education. The new guidelines was then developed through the work of MSDE and adopted in July of 2014. So we have revised the JGBF to reflect the philosophy changes reflected in the new state guidelines. These, of course, were in the revised Code of Conduct. It is great to hear this was being presented to the students on the first day of school. Student Services developed a whole PowerPoint and all for the schools to be able to use. Recall that Ms. Montgomery also shared with you the changes at the meeting on July 23rd. So the text for this particular policy, JGBF, is taken from the text adopted by the Maryland State Board of Education. So the Code of Conduct then is to reflect a discipline philosophy based on the goals of fostering, teaching, and acknowledging positive behavior, like the palm tree. Keep students connected to school so that they may graduate college and career ready. Describe the conduct that may lead to in-school interventions, out-of-school suspensions, or expulsions. Allow for discretion in imposing discipline, and explain why and how long-term suspensions or expulsions are last resort options. Any questions regarding the two policies?
Ms. Lee?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Weaver?
No questions, thank you.
I have nothing. Mrs. Washington?
No questions, thank you.
No questions.
Okay. All right. With that, I am seeking a motion to approve this action item.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the policies JEA and JGBF as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Ms. Kelly Hall. Oh, there you are. You moved. Here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am here tonight with our 4 Title I principals, Miss Annette Wood from George Washington Carver, Miss Wachula Adams from Green Holly, Mr. Scott Serbiak from Park Hall Elementary, and Dr. Curtis Alston from Lexington Park Elementary, as well as our Title I literacy lead, Mrs. Katie Miller. And we are here this evening to bring forward to you a request for professional development services, a sole source contract that's a continuation of what we started last year with the American Reading Company. It's the ERLA initiative that's already in place at the 4 Title I schools. And our goal for this year is that we would get the contracted services for really 2 sites, for George Washington Carver and Park Hall Elementary, because they have a large number of new teachers this year. So we want to pursue that with them. Mrs. Miller will continue to lead the initiatives at Green Holly and Lexington Park. The estimated cost for this framework professional development is $25,000. It includes 10 complete days of on-site training, which includes hands-on learning experiences, simulations, practical applications, hand-over-hand modeling. And it's completely funded with Title I grant funds. And then, as you know, this is a continuation of what we've done in the past, and here's some just encouraging data to date. One of our goals was to increase the number of students identified as proficient or above using the ERLA framework, and you can see the orange. We're seeing some very encouraging trends. We also had a goal of decreasing the number of students identified as significantly below grade level using this system, and you can see the orange is coming down. And then we also correlated it with our DIBELS assessment, which is a nationally normed reading assessment. So we had 3 parts on there. In the first upper left-hand box, the reduction of students identified as intensive on DIBELS oral reading fluency. And you can see the reduction is starting to happen. And then moving over to the next box on the right, an increase in students identified as benchmark or meeting the goal on the DIBELS oral reading fluency. And you can see the second blue boxes coming up. And then lastly, we wanted to increase the students meeting the recommended accuracy rate on DIBELS. And you can see again, we're seeing the beginning of an encouraging trend. Teacher testimonials, I want to be completely transparent. This was a big change in practice and a change in thinking. And so our teachers said last year, some of you may have heard, it was very frustrating and the management was very hard at first, but it was worth it. We had to collaborate as a team and help each other out. I made this a priority, and that's why it works. And then you'll see some pictures. Many of you have visited and actually seen this happening, but you can see some of the teacher quotes. I was able to focus the teaching of reading like I never have before. I saw more reading growth than I've ever seen before. It was very easy to differentiate to meet the different reading needs. I just knew what each student needed to work on, and that's part of the framework. It really helps to identify what students need to go from one level to the next. And then we celebrate. We celebrate the amount of time reading. We celebrate the success of reading. Some of you were kind enough to join us last year, and you can see some pictures of some of those wonderful celebrations. And lastly, we have a commitment to all of the Title I schools to clearly and comprehensively communicate what's going on so that we keep everybody on the same page. So there is an ongoing Title I literacy newsletter. And at any point, if any of you would like a copy, we would be glad to share that with you. So we are respectfully requesting your approval of this sole source contract for this year.
Thank you. Mrs. Lee, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Weaver?
Thank you for providing all the statistics and showing that it is working, and I think that's fantastic, and all the hard work that's going into it, so.
Thank you.
I echo that. Did you look at my note?
I can't even read.
Mrs. Washington?
I need to get new glasses.
The data is encouraging that more students are becoming proficient or above, and that's what we want for all students. Great program. The teachers were honest, said it was difficult at first.
It
but,
was.
They epitomize what they want the students to do. You never quit, you keep working at it, and it's going to show the proven results, which it is doing. And we would like for those results to continue. So thanks to all the teachers to take the time to really put this in practice and to embrace this. Thank you.
Thank you.
The gains from October to June are really, really impressive. And so I just want to say that I appreciate the hard work that went into it, because it clearly was not an easy thing to accomplish, to learn this system and to implement it. But the response and the success that was demonstrated, I think, makes it every bit worthwhile. So thank you very much. Also appreciate the information you provided, but and just grateful that the Title I grant will extend to this.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Smith?
I would just like to say thank you very much, Ms. Hall, for presenting. Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Thank you very much, principals, for coming out on a beautiful night to share your time with us. This really has been something that's a fantastic framework, and it really does yield incredible results. And so money well spent, effort well spent, time well spent, and really, truly, you're laying the foundation for the future of your children, but also the children of others, other schools in St. Mary's County, because we can definitely say this is something worth investing ourselves in.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay, and with that, do I have a motion for this action item, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the procurement of professional development services for the continuation of the Title I Independent Reading Level Assessment Framework Initiative to support instructional practice that positively impact literacy achievement in Title I schools.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Next on the agenda, bread. Bread products for child nutrition program. Sorry. Mr. Mike Jones and Ms. Vicky Mayo. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
So tonight, we're bringing forward for your consideration the approval to purchase bread products for our child nutrition program. Our intent is to use a bid that was competitively bid by Calvert County Public Schools. This contract provides for an initial one-year term with options to extend the contract for 2 additional one-year periods. These products meet our program requirements and are the same products that we have been using. Schmitz has been providing our bread products for the past 5 years and was the only bidder to respond to Calvert County's bid as well as SMCPS's previous bid. SMCPS has benefited from excellent customer service during the previous contract periods. And so our recommendation is that the Board of Education of St. Mary's County approves the purchase of bread products for child nutrition program, for the child nutrition program on an as-needed basis as funding allows throughout the duration of the contract in amounts not to exceed $105,000 per fiscal year.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Ms. Lee?
No comments or questions, thank you.
Mrs. Weaver?
Okay, so you piggybacked on a Calvert County bid. Was there a reason behind you not placing out a bid?
You want to respond to that, Vicki?
Well, in fact, I was getting ready to put our bid out when I asked Charles and Calvert if they were interested in combining our requirements for a cooperative solicitation. When I found out that Calvert had just awarded their contract, and it's for the same items that we are already purchasing from the same vendor that we've been purchasing our bread products from since 2008. So that's why I did not, after we reviewed the bid documents that Calvert County provided and we reviewed the pricing, we found their contract to be acceptable. And that's why we're recommending to piggyback.
Okay, because it has here, Schmidt Baking Company was the only vendor to respond to both the recent Calvert County Public Schools solicitation and to the invitation to bid solicited by St. Mary's County Public Schools in 2010. So you've got 5 years there that you didn't place anything out. Was it a 5-year contract that you had with them?
Yes, I typically do a 1-year contract with 4 one-year options to renew. And if we are satisfied with the performance of the contract and the products and services that we receive from the vendor, we typically exercise our options to renew the contract for another year. And so most of our contracts have the potential to be 5 years.
Okay, and I guess I really have an issue with just continually piggybacking on other people. I will tell you that I did a little research into Calvert County and went through their board information and their the financials. And so the February 19th, it says the Board of Education of Calvert County met on the above date, and in the boardroom, et cetera. Child nutrition funds, the loss of the month was $119,252. March 19th, the loss for the month was $52,287. April 9th, the loss for the month was $33,987. Then, you know, and we do know that Calvert County's had some financial difficulties. You know, they said if they could not basically get things together, they were going to have budget reductions, et cetera, on reducing transportation, on and on and on. So I guess my thing is if there is a county that's having financial difficulties and we're just piggybacking on there without putting out our own bid to see what we can get, you know, we're just blindly saying, well, they got the best bet, or the best bid, without researching it ourselves. And I would like to see us put out bids ourselves. I know that everybody keeps saying, well, we have this one area that you go for bids. But instead of piggybacking on other people, why don't we get out there, get the bids, you know, and if it's lower what they have, then go ahead and piggyback with them. But if not, who knows, maybe we've got a better deal, and maybe people will start piggybacking off of what the good deals that we're getting.
Well,
I just want to see that we're putting stuff out there and competitively looking at, you know, at these bids and at saving money.
So I think what Vicki was about to mention is that the contract that we just finished with Schmitz-Bacon was for a 5-year period, and the surrounding counties were actually piggybacking on our contract, and we had gotten good
Right.
pricing.
We don't piggyback all the contracts that we have, that we use for St. Mary's County Public Schools. We do piggyback quite a few, because we have a staff of myself and 2 people, and I'm the only one who puts contracts out for bid. And that's not enough staff to put every single item that we use for the school system out for bid ourselves. In fact, our current board policy encourages the use of piggyback contracts when possible. It's also approved by Maryland state statute and by the annotated code that says that we can piggyback contracts that are awarded through other public jurisdictions that go through a competitive bid process. We don't normally, we don't blindly decide to do it. We analyze it and determine if that's the best interest for us. But
Okay, and I do realize that this, yes, it is approved by MSDE, and it's approved for you to be able to do this. And I know that you are limited staff, but in saying that, is there documentation, have you put together anything, or has anybody put together anything to say, look, if we had more staff, even like another person, that we could save hundreds of thousands of dollars by, you know, actually being more competitive and getting the bids out there. You know, I just really have heartburn with piggybacking on other people, and especially when other counties that, like I see getting piggybacked on, are not doing that well.
well, quite honestly, we benefit from piggybacking off of contracts that are awarded by much larger jurisdictions that have greater buying power than we do. So when Baltimore County or Anne Arundel County or Montgomery County puts a bid out and the contracts are awarded based on their usage, if we piggyback and are extended the same pricing, then we're really benefiting, because we don't buy at the same levels that they do. So we frequently benefit by piggybacking on other counties.
So what I'm saying is you need to really be, I guess choosy, and I know that you have limited staff, but, I'm seeing this coming up a lot, and I just would like to see the bids going out there. And if this is the best bid, then that's fine. But if you haven't tried, then how do you know?
So on this current bid, it represents about a 3% increase over what we were paying previous year. Our bread purchases are approximately $100,000. The last time that we took an increase in our bread products was back in 2012, and this contract will be an increase of about 3% over about $3,000 over last year's expenses.
I have nothing, no questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Washington?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Owen?
Mrs. Washington and I were talking earlier this evening. We've both been at this for a long time. And so we have a benefit of knowing what you have been doing in terms of going out for bid, when you do, when you don't. I know that you have plans to bring
Bring forward
this
an
topic
information
forward,
item,
and I
right.
think that will be really helpful for us. In terms of the other two counties piggybacking on us for this, in the future, there may be, I'm sure, value in the three of us banding together to go out for bid, but this contract isn't that far off of what our previous one was. And so often, by going for a 1 year with 4 1-year extensions, we get better pricing because the companies know that as long as the service they're providing for us is offered effectively and there aren't issues with it, that they will continue to have that. And that gives their business stability, and they're looking for that. And they reward us by giving us better pricing for that guarantee of stability. And so the costs we're spending are not out of line with what other jurisdictions are spending. I guess the question I would have for you, when you talk about the annual amount spent with this company over the last 5 years, we started out at about 60,000 and we're now up just over 101,000. Is that because we're using more products? Is it because we have more students buying meals and therefore we have greater need for the products? Because I have a hard time believing that the cost has ramped up that much.
Well, quite a few years ago, we were looking to make improvements to our school nutrition program.
Right?
And one of the things that we were doing is incorporating whole grains into our bread products. And around the same time, USDA came out with a requirement that we do as such. And at that time, the expected increase in cost for converting all of our bread products to whole wheat products was about $60,000. And we're realizing some efficiencies now as more and more whole grain products are being manufactured. And so we probably didn't realize the entire $60,000 or $65,000 of anticipated costs from years ago to today's dollars. And so that probably accounts for most of the increase that we've seen. Not so much as our participation actually has dropped off in our school nutrition programs. And then it has across the country.
Yes.
So we've actually seen a reduction in the number of meals that we serve and, of course, the requirement for the products as well.
And that's probably a conversation for another day. But because it would help us, I think, ultimately to have an understanding of are there things that we're doing or should we be doing within the realm of what the federal government will allow nutritionally that will be cost-effective for us, cost-effective for parents, and that will be satisfying to children so that they're interested in buying their lunch versus packing their lunch. But thank you for the information. I know that you work hard at what you're doing, and you've brought forward some good contracts, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think your next item that we're going to be talking about really demonstrates that, the uniform rental. So, thank you.
Anything to add, Mr. Smith?
No, other than thank you, and Ms. Mail, I look forward to having you come back and really walk through the work that you and your colleagues do to review. I mean, I've worked with you for quite a while now, and I know that you do diligence. You give it due diligence, and I feel confident when you bring something before the board, you have spent the time to review the available contracts and costs. So, just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, do I have a motion for this action item, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of bread products for the Child Nutrition Program on an as-needed basis as funding allows throughout the duration of the contract in the amount not to exceed $105,000 per fiscal year.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next is Mr. Ashley Varner regarding uniform rental and cleaning services.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Here to speak with you a bit this evening about our uniform rental and cleaning services contract, cleaning for those uniforms, actually. First, a little bit of background information. Our school district has approximately 200 uniformed employees. Section 9.6 of the Collective Education Association of St. Mary's County contract requires that uniforms be provided to specific employee groups. These groups are the Department of Maintenance, Department of Operations, Information Technology, as well as Safety and Security. Little bid history here. On September 22nd of 2010, our board approved the use of Anne Arundel County's bid with Cintas Corporation, which was valid through June 30th of this year. Uniform rental and cleaning services were competitively bid by Hartford County Public Schools through a competitive solicitation process in 2012 for a 3-year period that was renewed for the first of 2 additional 2-year periods. In negotiating with us, Cintas has agreed to extend all the terms and conditions of that Hartford County contract to St. Mary's County Public Schools and lower the cost of any item or items that appear higher on that contract compared to what we had previously paid under our contract, which was through Anne Arundel County. We are therefore requesting that you approve the use of Hartford County's contract with Cintas with an estimated annual cost not to exceed $100,000 annually. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you have at this time.
Ms. Lee?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Weaver?
Okay, I'm going to ask the same question as I asked before.
Okay.
Have you gone out for any bids for, even locally, for this contract?
No.
Because,
No, I have not.
okay. I will tell you, the only thing that I do like about this bid is that it said, Cintas has agreed to lower the cost of any item that is higher on Hartford County's contract than the cost St. Mary's County had previously paid. So that's the only thing that I do agree with on this contract. But once again, you know, are there any local companies that do this?
Cintas is a local company. They're located in Hughesville.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
I don't have any questions. Thank you very much. Mrs. Washington?
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Allen?
Cintas is the company that I see, whose trucks I see everywhere, you know, whether it's hotels, whether it's hospitals, various things. So they are provide a service that is perhaps not universally available, at least as far as I've been able to research and tell. I do think the fact that you were able to negotiate, and presumably, Mrs. Mail, you negotiated the fact that they would extend to us whichever of the prices was lower? Or how did that come about?
I didn't have to twist their arm too hard. They like doing business with St. Mary's County, and they actually offered to do that.
Excellent.
But the contract that we're piggybacking, the U.S. Communities contract, it's a contract that's offered throughout the country. So even though it originated in Hartford County, Maryland, people all over the United States are using that company because Cintas is a national company.
At one time, we did not offer uniforms to our employees. It was something that we negotiated, and a part of the reasoning behind that, at least as I recall it, Mrs. Washington, was that we wanted people to be able to readily identify our staff when they walked into a building, and that happened more readily when we were providing the uniforms that they were not. And also to ensure that they were wearing uniforms that were clean and in good repair. And a number of the of the employee groups that wear uniforms are at the lower end of our pay scale, unfortunately. And I do think it is an important employee benefit that we offer to make sure that they are wearing uniforms that they feel good in as they go about their daily routine. And I think that's very important because I believe it demonstrates the board's respect for those employees. And so I'm grateful that we have chosen to offer uniforms, that it is part of our agreement, and that we take the time and the expense of caring for them. So thank you for bringing this forward. I'm glad that we have been good customers, which encourages Cintas to be a good provider. So thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Okay. Just, just what it comes down to is if you need more staff in order to be able to put out competitive bids, then please document and, bring that back so that we have documentation whenever whenever Mr. Smith or his staff is doing, when they're doing staffing needs. Because I think even though, like say we're asking, let's say for another FTE, whatever that person's salary is, you're gonna reap much more in benefit by getting out there the competitive bids and savings of hundreds of thousands. So, that's it.
All right, and with that, do I have a motion for this action item?
I move that the Board of Education approve the use of the Hartford County Public Schools contract with Cintas throughout the duration of the contract with an estimated annual cost not to exceed $100,000.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Mr. Steve Whitten.
This is it. So the comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities is actually a 119-page document that you should have already had. But I'll go over it all again if you like, because I love talking about what I do for a living. So each year, we modify the plan and update the plan based on changes in how we operate or needs the system has. And the Division of Supporting Services and the Department of Maintenance is pleased to submit the comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities in accordance with the requirements of COMAR. This plan must be submitted to the Board of Education and approved before it can be submitted to the state every year. The vision statement for the Department of Maintenance is to provide service in support of the learning environment that ensures safe, comfortable, attractive, and well-maintained facilities for staff, for students, staff, and community. Later on, or in the plan, you'll notice that these line up, the pattern of the words line up with our priorities: safe, comfortable, then attractive. And it also lines up with what we do that for: students, staff, and then the community. This is it's sort of like the organizational chart. I call it a functional chart. Instead of saying the people or the number of people we have in each position, which is in the full document, this says the responsibilities. And what I'd like to point out is down here that areas of responsibilities for this team leader are anything from flooring systems down to grounds and landscaping. And on the other side of the house, engineering side of the house, everything from irrigation systems down to school bus inspections and maintenance. Each year, I update some metrics in the plan to monitor our efficiency, our manpower usage, things of that nature, and to see where if we're meeting our goals. Overall, the following metrics indicate a healthy Department of Maintenance and identify areas that need closer monitoring in the coming years: the utilization, work order trends, budget, and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction was disappointing this year in two regards. We had scores, some scores went up, some scores went down, but I'll tell you before we get there, we didn't have the response this year that we typically have. We had less than 60% response So we're planning on doing it different next year and maybe earlier in the year. I think we're hitting a bad time in the year, So the labor utilization for the Department of Maintenance has increased from 63.4% in FY07 to 80.89% in FY15. According to industry standards, an acceptable labor utilization rate is from about 72% to about 84%. And according to our Mobley contributing editor, Labor Utilization, maintenance organizations could achieve 84% labor utilization, assuming that all work was planned and correctly supervised. Right now, we're hanging at about 80%. Past couple of years, it did go up to 84 in 2012. I do believe that was an anomaly, or we got real lucky. It's very hard to maintain that level of utilization. It really is. The guys do a real good job about, the whole team does a good job about documenting their time, letting us know where they could save time in different ways to do work. One of the biggest changes that took it from 63 to 80 was actually planning the work ahead of time and having the product there at the school site, and instead of having to run back and forth to the store a million times. That cut down quite a bit of the waste. This chart shows, kind of supports the previous chart. This shows the decrease in unplanned work and the increase in planned work. This increase over the years is, this initial increase was preventive maintenance work tickets, actually trying to catch things before they broke. And the decrease was the response to getting out there ahead of things. Took a lot of lumps on the head in these couple of years. We've steadied out. I'd still like to drive the unplanned work down to 40%, and I'd like to see the planned work at 60%. But there's several reasons I haven't been able to achieve that yet. But like I said, in many discussions privately over the past year and here last year, I won't stop fighting for it. I think that's where we can be. I think we can be there. And with a growing school system and more square footage, I think it's a necessity that I get there. We get there, sorry. So this is my budget over the years since 2005. I try to represent 10-year periods here. The standard here is that industrial standard maintenance ranges between $1.23 and $1.42 a square foot. That's industry-wide. SMCPS invest, this year we invested about $1.18 per square foot in FY15. Some of that has to do with the adjustment to the value of a dollar, because all these are valued out, because if I didn't value it out or correct it back to 2006, the federal government took the dollar back to a zero value, and as far as the consumer price index in 2006. I don't know why they chose that year, but it happened. You would see the budget always going up because we need more money to do the same thing because the value of the dollar goes down. So these are cost leveled, and plus I've picked up some square footage with, this does not include Duke. This does include Evergreen and some additions that happened at LES over the years and things like that. Staff, in this plan I am requesting 2 FTEs. I'm picking up a lot of square footage again, and it's just, I'm short by 1, so I'm really only requesting 1 and 1 replacement. But if the current staffing level is maintained through FY17, it is likely that the service performed by the Department of Maintenance will be increasingly reactionary or unplanned. Work backlogs will increase. That would be very bad. And the levels of service performed by the department will suffer. The really bad part about the backlog when it increases, if it gets too high, there's a loss of faith, and people stop even asking us to repair things or letting us know something's broken, and then that can cause this whole nother level of problems for us. Recommended operating budget and capital budget items. I apologize, these bullets are just a tad out of order. This is supposed to be last. I was on vacation when we were finishing this up. It was midnight at the Holiday Inn. Very honest. So something I talk about a little bit every year, but I never really get into, is how does maintenance recommend or come up with our recommendations to capital planning to insert in the CIP. So you'll notice in the back of the book, appendixes A through I, those are all scheduled-based, time-based replacements for major systems or components. And then 3 years ago, we inserted an adjustment column. So if Maryland State tells me I need to be replacing an HVAC system every 25 years, when I get to 18 years, I start looking at it because I need to plan 6 years out. And we'll adjust it. If the system's been holding up well, if it's robust, if parts are still available, we'll recommend that it stay past 25 years. But so we use that. we use the date-based appendixes, which is just time, in conjunction with our inspections and diagnostic testing. Oil testing, we test oil, look for how much metal's in it, instead of ripping a machine down. That's how we diagnosed the repairs we recently did to Great Mills High School. We also look at life cycle replacement schedules, which are folded into these appendix, and the amount of corrective and preventive maintenance that we've been performing. Every work order that comes through the system, everything we do gets documented and gets costed out, and every invoice gets marked with a work order so we can go back to the machine. And at some point in time, the machine becomes uneconomical to repair or replace it. And it makes sense. So those projects we sort out, and you'll see those in the back of the project book. We sort those out, we predict those. This year we're predicting up to FY 2022, I apologize. We recommend those to capital planning, and then they either put those directly into the CIP, or they'll collect projects that we've recommended individually, like a roof and HVAC system. We may be recommended 5 years apart. They'll collect those two projects and put them together as one project. And maybe the roof gets done 2 years early, and the HVAC system has to wait 3 years, but it's a larger project. And then capital planning, I'm sure they do that to utilize state dollars as best as possible. Down here, I've included a graph, and I've reset the systems. This is for the systems, not the building. So it's not the structure, it's more the systems within the structure, and we consider roof a system. So I've reset Spring Ridge to 0 years. What I would like to bring to your attention is this yellow line is what I call it's a bathtub curve, because it looks like a bathtub. The failure rate when things are new is quite high, as you can imagine. It's like buying a new car. Things break when you first get it. It hits a point in its life where the amount of maintenance, repair, or maintenance you have to do, it kind of stables out, and then it increases. And this happens at about 25 to 26 years, and this is the fire alarm system, HVAC, plumbing, bathroom partitions, just everything you can imagine in a school. I put this up here just to show you where we are. This shows you the age of the systems backwards. And if you add 5 years, we have to plan out 6 years. If you add 5 years to 18, you're up there at 22 years, and 23 years, and you're moving right close to that advanced failure rate. So we do a pretty good job of renovating and keep moving these buildings from this end of the calendar down here. So I thought that would be, I wanted to bring that up. That is sort of new in the book this year. I introduced it last year, but I really didn't talk much about it in last year's CMP. Customer satisfaction. Although climate control is still low, we did see an increase in the satisfaction of 14.25%, and we also, emergency response, we climbed 6%. We did have a decrease in normal work order satisfaction of 33%. And we do very few emergency response, and we do a lot of these normal work orders, and our satisfaction is decreasing. Some of it has to do, if you go back and look at the data, our guys are performing, we're utilizing them correctly, they're being managed correctly is what I mean. We've seen an increase in work orders of over 1,000. We're about 10,000 work orders a year. But our backlog is staying stable. And what me and the foreman are finding is the guys are going out and they're trying to keep up. They understand the importance of what they do. But what they're doing is, I think the quality is starting to fall. We're starting to see a lot of recalls. Calls again from the principals, you got to come back out. So that's one of the reasons another reason I'm asking for the FTEs is because the quality's starting to fall. So some of that increase in work orders is actually just recalls. Come back, it didn't get fixed the first time. But we really think it's our guys just trying to keep up with the workload as fast as the foremen are giving them to them and scheduling. And a lot of my guys don't even take vacations during the summers. They understand what they're doing. They understand what they work for. They understand what it's about. And I'm trying to guide them another way, but it can be difficult sometimes. Very prideful group. And a decrease in satisfaction in odd or last-minute work orders of 39%. With a reduced crew, especially in the labor side of the house, it's very difficult to respond to. We need traffic cones set up for an event this weekend, or we need furniture delivered at the last minute. So we have seen a decrease there. That is very concerning. We will be looking at them and correcting them. If you remember a few years ago, we had a problem in asphalt. This little green bar in asphalt was down here at Fair to Poor. We're bringing that up. That is the whole purpose of this, is to identify where we need to focus for the next year. Accomplishments, Chaptacon High School scoreboard, the Great Mills High School water chiller rebuild, which should extend the life from 25 years to about 35 years. Leonardtown High School's fire alarm upgrade, failing components, it had hit its life cycle. Main controller had legacy programming, which means old, out of it wasn't up to modern code. Benjamin Banneker, Big Ben and Little Ben, fire alarm repairs due to a storm damage. That's always fun, dealing with something you didn't plan on that magnitude. Chaptacon High School's media center air handler replacement, it had not been replaced during the last renovation because it was too young, but we ran it to 36 years before we had to replace it. Hollywood Elementary School, we had to recoat the Heplon roof. Heplon roofs, that particular brand of Heplon is no longer used. It falls apart really early. So we recoated it with this. We found a system to recoat it with to get it to hold together until CIP money would be available in 2020. We did all that work in-house. Margaret Brent Middle School's erosion repair prevention under the rear of the bus loop. We had another erosion problem at Margaret Brent. Yeah, you know where the bus loop is? It took out ground underneath the bus loop. We were able to repair it without digging up the bus loop and down the hill to the stormwater pond. Benjamin Banneker Elementary's arsenic removal system. Chaptacon High School's Phase 2 partial roof replacement. This is about 15,000 square foot. That had been there since 1983. The repair and maintenance got too hard or too much. Leonardtown High School's bleacher code upgrade, which actually just finished the other day, I'm pleased to announce. They had a couple little punch list items. Elms Educational Facilities kitchen upgrade, which is almost done. It's still not 100%, but it is right there. Leonardtown High School Phase 1 interior painting, mainly the interior hallways have been completed. No reportable losses to freezing temperatures in December of 14. Was very mild record temperatures, I will say, so we didn't have real cold temperatures in December. But if you do recall, January brought temperatures are slightly below our average, and February and March averaged about 5 degrees below the average, so we had a cold late winter this year. We directed the execution of about 8,000, and on top of all this, we directed the execution of about 8,798 work orders as of May 25th, 2015. And we experienced no loss in teaching due to a preventable infrastructure failure. Now, we do have infrastructure failures that are beyond our control. We have one at Leonardtown High School, which was degrading SMECO lines, which have been replaced. Just to bring some faces, people we never let out of the office, including myself. This is Miss Jessie. She deals mainly with scheduling contractors, keeping me where I'm supposed to be, and keeping the paperwork straight for the security systems. She helps Kathy with security systems and other various tasks. This is Ronnie. We do have wastewater plant. He is our wastewater operator, but he also runs all of our HVAC systems remotely, or monitors. That's, I think we're up to 9,000 points, or data points. We can usually look at a building and tell you where it's hot, where it's cold, and he can usually make adjustments to temporarily get around it till we can get a mechanic there to fix it. This is Miss Sharon. She's the one that opens, closes, helps define if they're vague, 8,000 some odd work orders a year. And then Miss Kathy Murphy, she does quite a few invoices and POs a year. As you can imagine, with that many work orders, not every job, I think the average cost for each job is like $13, so it's a lot of invoices going around. We have some that are huge and some that are small. And there's a couple pictures. There's Mr. Joe Hall painting. He's been painting for 45 years now. We're making benches for graduation. Graduation setup is a big event for us as well as operation. And there's Paul. He's actually rehanging that frame back there after we painted in here. There's some boiler mechanics working at the boilers. I'm glad to see he's got his gloves on. There's Mr. Mason working on an electrical problem, and as always, we love that snow. And there's the entire apartment that takes care of the 2.3 million square foot plus 76 mobile units every year. So with that, we're recommending action that the board approve the 2015 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan for Educational Facilities. And do you have any questions?
Ms. Lee?
I really like all of the data that you brought to this presentation, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a few things. Thank you so much for putting faces up there so that we can all see the people that are behind the scenes, ensuring that the schools are operational. How are the work orders process? Like, say, if I'm a teacher in a classroom and something's not working, is it like I write something up, or do I go on the computer, or?
The teacher, if you want to start at the teacher in the classroom, that would be a good example. Every principal, every year we ask them, who do you want to submit work orders on your behalf? Because whatever comes through, we assume this principal knows about, and we execute.
Okay.
So the teachers are typically directed to the building service manager, which is an operational staff fellow in the building, like Mr. Jordan, I think you said you met at Park Hall.
Right.
Great guy. Ask him about the snow sometime. So the teachers would go to Mr. Jordan and tell Mr. Jordan. I would assume that's how it's structured
Okay.
in his school. And then Mr. Jordan sits down with the secretary, or does it himself, and he puts in a work order describing the room number, what needs to be done, and it comes into Sharon. The work order specialist, Ms. DeVore. And she takes those and she does a preliminary sort. And what that means is she's not technically competent to put everything in the exact order, but she can tell what needs to be done now and what we can discuss before tomorrow. So she does that preliminary sort and gets them to the foreman or the team leader, and they discuss which order everything needs to happen in. If it's an emergency, the buildings call in. I don't care what it is. Everyone has our number. You hit 0, you go to Sharon. If it's an emergency, they call. I'm right there. I get on the phone with them, and we work it through that way. But
Now,
there
how
is a
do the
designated
maintenance-
person for every, I'm
The
sorry.
maintenance people in the field receive that information.
Every morning, they're directed by their team leaders. We have 4 team leaders. They each have responsibility areas, and they get work orders and they get a schedule for the day. And so we know where they're going to be. That schedule gets broken up. We had a guy working on a hot water heater the other morning, and he was working at the Forest Center on a VAV, which is a air conditioning unit, and he got called away to go to Lenny Marshall Denton on a hot water heater problem. So that happens during the day also. And then they reconcile at the end of the day. And then any purchases they made, they have to document back on the invoices. So we can take the cost back to the invoice. And then we close it out at the end of the day.
Just want to make a comment. My brother is a maintenance person. He is plumbing, electrician, and HVAC. He works at a college now. He used to be at a high school, and he also used to drive the bus. But now that he's at a college, of course he doesn't drive the bus. But he tells me sometimes of the frustrations that he has when they've put in a brand-new building and they have not increased staff, but yet everything needs to be maintained. So I really think it's important. We've added Evergreen, we've added Duke, we've added a bigger space for Spring Ridge, plus we have all those mobile units out there. We have so much going on, and if we don't maintain what we have, then we're going to pay a larger price later because we have not kept it up to date. So,
Thank you.
I really just think that's so important. Like I said, I hear his frustrations. They put in 2 new buildings, large buildings, and have not increased staff. So they're basically running around just putting out fires. So, I just think it's important that we maintain what we have.
It's a huge investment. The replacement value, that's without educational material, just at it was $364 million last year when the insurance reported for that. So it's quite a bit of money.
Now, I noticed too that there's only 1 plumber. Is that really all that you really need?
We have
or is
we
this-
have helpers with him.
Okay.
Because if the helpers decide to move up to be HVAC mechanics, or they decide to go the route of a plumber, either way, they need to know plumbing, because
Right.
HVAC has plumbing involved. The same with the helper that we have with the electrician. You got to know electric if you want to be HVAC, and actually, these days, you need to know a little electric to be a plumber,
Right.
with all the automatic faucets and
So I just was kind of curious if that, if that plumber is just like running ragged or.
There are days he comes in my office and
Okay.
tells me he's not coming to work tomorrow. He does, but it makes him feel better to tell me he's not.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
I have a couple questions, but first of all, I just want to say that I think that your staff and your department does a phenomenal job. I mean, I know that just in feedback I've received specifically when the air conditioning does not work in a school,
Mhm.
like things blow up everywhere, and not just here, but parents
Mhm.
into the school office, everything. So the ability for your group to have a system in place and react very quickly, I think goes a very long way. And then you do not have loss of teaching time. You might have some sweaty people for a little while, but eventually it all settles down. So I do appreciate that. On the slide about the work order trends, and I don't want like a specific dollar amount, but I'm just curious if in your experience, when you see the unplanned work orders on the increase, and you're not, you're not doing that proactive maintenance, I'm assuming that your costs and your budget take a hit on that as well?
Well, what ends up happening is if you don't do your preventive maintenance, which is planned and budgeted for,
Right.
you end up taking the money that you plan to do painting and other things and end up shifting it to do the reactive things. I can't tell you that it costs more every day.
But in the long term, I
It
would
does.
assume it
You'll
does.
get these
Because you're-
huge hits.
Right, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and yes.
But I don't expect any numbers, I'm just putting that out there that
The-
I recognize
It's a
that
trend.
fact. Right, it
The-
has to occur somehow, because if you don't do the preventive maintenance, when something breaks, then it could be catastrophic.
Yes. When you get back to this point where we were when I came here originally.
Right, that's specifically what I was looking
yeah,
at.
Peter ran out of money at that point. I mean,
Right.
it was not good. It's bad on morale too. It's bad all around.
Right,
And it really
'cause
is.
they feel like
You
they
run
can't keep
people
up.
ragged. I mean, the plumber and everybody else feels the same way, and we're not coming in tomorrow.
Mhm.
But
Okay, now my next question on your curve.
the
Bathtub.
bathtub,
Yeah, the bathtub curve. All I could think of is Bell, and I know that's not. So for the items that are in the advanced failure rate, I understand Spring Ridge clearly gets reset because it's all new construction. But what has to happen in order for any of those that as they creep up into the advanced failure rate to get moved to another bucket?
Well, that's a complicated one.
Besides like a mass renovation.
Well, Mechanicsville is not a mass renovation. That's actually, what's dragging that down is, I'm tongue-tied. Do you
We
remember?
did
Ms.
the
Kim?
roof. The HVAC?
It's HVAC. I think the roof is new. Green Holly, though, A and B, it's the HVAC system definitely, and the
Okay.
roof is dragging that down.
So once those projects are completed, do they get to move back into the constant
That-
failure rate?
Yes, they'll move down to about 3 to 5 years old, because we still have other systems in there that need attention, but they're not as drastic.
Okay.
HVAC systems, roofing, are the most expensive, and they have the shortest lifespan.
Oh, completely understandable, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I wrote something else down, but now I don't understand my notes as I go through it. So I'm gonna go on to Mrs. Washington and see if it sparks a thought. Go
I
ahead.
probably will. According to your presentation, it is very obvious that the square footage has increased tremendously without adding additional personnel to maintain those buildings. And if we don't do something to get you requests to FTEs, then we're gonna be in the advanced failure rate. We have invested a lot of money in these buildings up front to maintain them, and we want to have equity among our buildings. In order to do that, we have to make sure all our buildings are maintained. So I can see the need for you to have 2 additional FTEs to maintain our buildings, because it's gonna cost us more money in the long run. And the employees are gonna get frustrated. And so what happens, as you say, they have to go back again because they're trying to hurry up and get it done and go to the next place.
So they're trying to keep everybody happy.
So, that was it.
That was it.
See, like that. So, thank you, you're still doing a great job, but you see what's gonna happen if you don't get additional employees to help. So, thank you for bringing the truth forward, and, you still do a wonderful job, but
Thank
I
you.
just don't wanna see our employees get frustrated, and we want happy employees.
Yeah, yes.
Can I jump in, Kathy? 'Cause she sparked my memory.
Go for it.
So on the recalls, when you were talking about how they have to go back, is that primarily because, and this is just your thought, because they feel as if they are rushed to get the job done because they have so many work orders, or is it the age of the item that they are repairing?
they're not rushed to finish them. They feel obligated themselves to get through as many as they can. And what we get called back on is they didn't clean up the rest of the way, or they got the cooling going, but, you know, the actual complaint on the work ticket was not only the cooling, it was the airflow. It was blowing on the back of her neck, and they forgot to do that. They're rushing through trying to make, they want to make everybody, they're like everyone else. They want to make everybody happy, but I'm having to calm them down. I mean, we can't be going, you know, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when do you have the time to do it a second? But they're just so used to completing everything their foreman give them, or their team leaders give them every day.
Okay.
So, and the customer survey kind of, the quality checks we did were starting to indicate it, but the customer survey coming back kind of put a pin on the wall for us.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, Kathy, I just interrupted.
Nope, you're good. Do I recall that you have brought forward the request to bring on an additional FTE, but unfortunately, that has gotten cut as a result of budget reality and competing needs?
Yes.
Okay.
I had requested one in previous years.
That's what I thought. And if we were able to do that for you, I also know, and was reading something today about the fact that the labor force, the ability to find staff, individuals who are qualified, especially in the building trades, has become increasingly difficult, and therefore it has had a significant impact on the statewide costs of construction, especially at for school systems. I believe that's.
That is another facet. I think that's a whole different facet of the discussion, but it is a great impact on this
Right.
problem also.
And I also know that while as we go in and out of buildings, we're looking at them in terms of how clean they are and how sparkling and how functional, and I guess we see them as oftentimes newer than they really are. And I think especially when you look at the next presentation that's coming forward, our buildings and our systems are aging, and things that, you know, are coming around again because it's time to replace them, or it's time to upgrade them. And a lot of those have been pushed out because we simply don't have the funding to be able to do some of these things. And so that, I know, is also impacting your workload, because you are having to babysit them and baby them along to make sure that they do stay in place. I mean, some of the systems at Spring Ridge, before we were able to do this, they were having to go to the Amish to actually have them make the parts, because
They don't make them anymore.
they were not available commercially any longer. And I was at a meeting earlier this week where they talked about the fact that something that, while not directly in your department, is certainly going to have an impact on you, which is there's, I gather, a statewide committee now looking at smaller, cheaper buildings with a shorter life cycle. So instead of the 50-year life cycle that we've been building things for and working to maintain, they're now looking at paying less but having to replace them at 20 years, vice 50 years. I'm not sure how that works and is cost effective, but we'll wait and see what their report is. I mean, given the requirements on your folks and giving their unfailingly smiling persona, I mean, you just never walk past these guys if they're not smiling. It doesn't matter what they're doing. I think you really are to be commended for leading a group of individuals who are so passionate about making sure that our staff and our students are comfortable and are safe and in the buildings that they are learning in. So thank you. And while I know that the comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities is a statewide mandate, I think that having a comprehensive plan, when you know where you need to be, it's a lot easier to figure out how you're going to get there. And so putting together a strategic plan like this, I think, is very effective. And in the times that you've come to us and shown us this, it's evident that you're very proud of what you're doing.
Oh,
and
I
of the
enjoy what I
people
do.
for
You have
whom-
to, you have to enjoy this work.
So, nicely done, and thank you. And please go back to your staff and let them know.
I will.
Thanks for all they do, because it is noticed. It absolutely is noticed. As Mrs. Bailey said, it's not just us, it's those parents and staff members who are saying, you know, good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Whidden, as always, thank you. And to all those with whom you work, thank you as well. 2.5 million square feet, 800 acres of just land that needs to be taken care of. I mean, it's a daunting amount. You are very planful. You are metrics-driven in your leadership, and that really does yield great benefit when you come before the board and say, I really need 2 additional FTEs. And I think the board has support for that request, and as we build the budget, I look forward to really working quite closely with you on that.
Thank you.
I do have one question for you. You mentioned that one is actually a replacement, and then the other is the FTE, so.
We lost one, I believe it was 4 fiscal years ago. And I've been trying to get that one back.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
wow.
So it's not that someone left over the course of this past year,
Oh,
it's
no.
that got dropped
No, I don't have
out,
it in here, sorry.
and you weren't able to replace them when they left.
Yeah.
So that really, to me, 4 years later, that really is 2 new FTEs.
Right.
You're just operating at a deficit to start with. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say one last thing. I did read the 120-page document.
Actually, I did too.
So it was,
Can't hear. I can't hear. I apologize.
I did read the 120-page document that was put together. It was extremely comprehensive and thorough. And for all of you in the audience, there were some pages that were intentionally left blank.
Yes,
So
there
it was
were.
not full 120 pages of words.
It
But
was still a great deal of homework.
It
And she
was.
should
Yes,
be
it was. We
commended
have
for
plenty
doing
Right, I mean,
of
this
it
dutifully.
was, it, besides the few things that I asked here, it really covered everything, and I really had very little question, or very few questions, and very little doubt at the amount of work that your department does, so.
Thank
It
you
was
very
a
much.
very
Excellent
thorough
job, yes.
document.
Yeah, see, that's why I
So-
knew on page 27, they were asking for 2 FTEs.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that there was
they're
one
pretty
plumber.
And that was a
Yep.
common theme of the FTEs throughout the document, so very nicely done. So,
Thank you very much.
but yes, it was extremely thorough, so thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm
Not a
sure it
problem.
took a long time, so.
I will let the team know.
So with that, once again, I'm looking for a motion.
I recommend that the board approves the 2015 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan for the Educational Facilities.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I have an idea, since we're doing like the teacher, like growing our own teachers, we could be
I don't know
growing
where
our
it
own
is.
plumbers, electricians.
We're
in the
trying.
center.
Well,
We're
and-
trying.
And in many ways, the progression through the learning within the Department of Maintenance is they enter with a certain skill set and they learn throughout and across and move up. I mean, that's, and again, we are a destination, employer. People stay with us for their entire professional careers and they learn an incredible amount of information from multiple trades. Good evening, Miss Howe.
Good evening. It is very purposeful that Mr. Whidden and I present on the same night. We do that with great intention. There is a direct correlation between the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan for Educational Facilities and the State Capital Improvements Program. As Mr. Whidden highlighted, there's a natural extension from the maintenance of our facilities and their progression through their life into what becomes a capital improvements program for major projects like our roofs and our HVACs. So as I go through my presentation tonight, a lot of what Mr. Whidden talked about, I will highlight in my presentation. We were just before you in the spring talking about our educational facilities master plan. That document serves as our planning document for our state capital improvements program, which is what we are here today, which is a funding document at the state level to fund those state documents. We'll be before you again in December with the third component of that document series, which is the local capital improvements program, which is the local funding document. So we'll be back before you, but we will highlight some of those local projects now to give you an indication of where we're going to be as we continue on with this process. The state capital improvements program is required by the public school construction program to be submitted by October 5th of this year. If approved today, it would then need to be submitted to the county commissioners for a letter of support from them as well. So that would be our next process step. What we do is we get in July of every year, public school construction program gives us about a 35-page set of instructions on how to complete the document every year, in conjunction with about a 200-page set of instructions that they've already published. So we do take a look at that. A key piece of that document every year is that they publish a new square foot cost for construction projects that we have to use. That is one piece of it. In conjunction with that is also, over the last 4 years, we've been going through a change in the state participation, which has been being lowered. Those two things are going to have a huge impact on our budget presentation that we talk about today. This year is the final year in that 4-year process of reducing our state participation down from 75% to this year 58%. And that's a huge portion, and I'll talk about what the numbers mean for that for this year as we do that last step of 1%. In addition, a very historic increase of $49 per square foot for the building cost. That's going to have a huge impact. Based on a discussion I had with Dr. Lever, the director of public school construction today, based on where they're seeing bids come in, there will most likely be a change to this in December of January, increasing it further. So I went back and I did a historic look at where we've been. I'm going to have a little bit more on where our numbers have been, but I went back and looked at Duke, which we bid 2 years ago. If you look at where we were 2 years ago when we bid Duke, we know that was a very tight bid. We were 21% more per square foot per dollar than they were at that time. And if you look at where we were then, we're only 9% higher than this number now. So we're right on track for where they are at this point in time because we know our regional costs are more than what the state average is. So if they're raising those numbers, it makes me feel more comfortable that we'll be able to successfully award the next project. So I'm looking forward to that, although I know it means that there will be less funding dollars available for everyone, but it means that the projects that we do bring forward will have more success at bid day. So more information to come on that as we go forward. In addition, as we get through the presentation, I want you to remember in Mr. Whidden's presentation, because we collaborate a lot on it, that chart he called the bathtub chart. It's going to come back to play in my presentation quite a bit. And the big reason is a lot of those projects we were very successful in renovating in the 1990s due to the money that was available for renovation and modernization of our buildings. But those buildings, as much as we may not think that Great Mills High School, we don't want to talk about age, it's 25 years old now. And it is coming due for roof HVACs in the next 5 to 10 years. That begins a cycle of a very successful modernization schedule that's going to go through every one of our high schools, the Forest and Career Technology Center, and a lot of our other elementary schools and middle schools. So we'll be talking a lot about that. So remember that bathtub chart as we go through. When we talk about what that 1% did for us this year in terms of change in our dollar amounts and what the $49 per square foot did, this column here represents the state change, this represents the local, and I have it by category. When I do the budgets, I do them by the percent, I do them by the dollar, and then I add them together and I look at all the other things we did. That 1% change for us was an increase of a little over $1 million to the county, and that reduced the state by $1 million. The increase in the 6 years, just the projects that are within the 6 years, that $49 is an increase of $17.4 million to the county. And it's an increase of 13.2 to the state. It's a huge increase, but it really is going to make sure that we have the funding that we need to do those projects as we go forward. Projects that we added directly from the comprehensive maintenance plan, an additional $932 of ones that were locally funded only. Others were reflected in the state projects. Project scope changes, that's a reduction of 1.8, and we'll talk about that a little bit farther as we go forward. That's a change in Mechanicsville Elementary School and just looking at really what we need to do to that school. And then we had 5 years from last year that we brought forward because we dropped the current year from last year. So adding in fiscal year 2021 this year would add $186,000 to the local and $228,000 to the state. So for a grand total increase of $17.8 million to the local. 12.3 to the state. The good thing is when I get a little farther in my presentation, based on all the changes we made in the program over the 6 years, for For those first 5 that we're comparing to last year, we're still 5.6 million less than what we had proposed in the master plan. So we're still good. We're still a little less, but this increase over the life of these projects as they move through the next 10 years, as we talk about the high school completing in 10 to 12 years, going to have a significant increase in the projects. So I did go back and look at that $49. It is a historic increase, and you can see where we've been steadily rising. We slowed down a little bit in this increase, and then you can just see the $49 increase this year drastically, having a huge spike, taking us well up into the $350 range for building and site. When we start talking about where we need to be in terms of our cost, this is a stacked bar chart with the state being the blue in terms of the amount of money we need per year, local being the red color. What I wanted to look at is this is where we've been. And this spike right here is when the county forward funded Spring Ridge Middle School. But if you can see, we've been hovering right under $10 million. That's where we typically have been with the budgeting of our capital improvements program. Between state and local dollars, for the 2009 to 2012, we averaged around $10 million per year. We did spike up when we did the 2 years of forward funding for Spring Ridge, and then in 15-16 we dropped back down to the $10 million. What I would like to look forward to as we look forward to the next couple of years, in 17-18, we're going to exceed that as we start to look at the new elementary school coming online with these new dollars that went into effect, some of the roofs and HVACs that we have coming on. But what I really would like to have people look at is this is the high school.
Yeah.
What the $49 did to the high school was a tremendous increase in that project. It went from a $75 million project to well close to a $90 million project. So this is something that we are going to have to work with our funding agents, both the state and the local, when we get to that, of how we're going to do that when 10 to 20 million is going to be a gap that they're going to have to focus on. So that is something we will have to consider as we continue on, knowing that the increase is probably going to continue. Probably not at $49 per year, but it's probably still going to increase. As Mr. Whidden said on that bathtub, I'm going to take you back to that bathtub chart. When we look at our roofs and our HVACs, right now, we look at those 1990 projects and our roofs, we have 9 roofing projects, or 32% of our inventory of our buildings that need to be replaced in the next 10 years. That includes Great Mills and Chopticon, then followed very quickly thereafter by Leonardtown High School. 57% of our buildings have to have new roofs between the next 15 to 26 years. That's getting added back to that chart I just showed you about needing a new high school as well. In addition, in our HVACs, 11 or 39% need to be replaced in the next 10 years, including Great Mills and Chopticon, and then right thereafter, we're going to start adding Leonardtown and the Forest Center. So when we start looking, there's an additional 39% in the next 15 to 42 years. So again, compounding that with the new high school coming in. This one is my chart that correlates to Mr. Whidden's bathtub chart. In the next 10 years, we have those projects I was talking about. And these are the ones that we currently listed in our 6-year CIP for roofs and HVACs. Some of them you'll see are partials, and that's because when we did Piney Point, at the time we did that project in the 1990s, all of the roof did not need to be replaced at the time. We only did partial, so now we're only coming back and doing the other partial. But when you get to the next 11 to 21 years, you'll see the other portion of that partial roof coming in. And where he talked about that critical failure, these are those projects he's identified. We're working to articulate those of when they're going to come into the CIP. I have a master plan schedule that takes all of these projects out to 2050. I won't be here, but I'll pass that list on to someone else, and they will start figuring those in to the list. But our master plan list of projects goes out to 2050 at this time for roofs and HVACs and modernizations. And then we go out to 22 years. So that takes his list of CMP projects and would keep shifting that list to the left. They would then continue to move to the right as they age, and we would just keep shifting them back and forth to get through all of the projects. That's our HVAC and roof systemic problem that we have to keep working on. Coupled with that is in the last 10 years, we've had a 7.2% growth increase. We talked a little bit about that in the beginning, about our enrollment projections at the very beginning of the meeting. That's 1,185 new students in the last 10 years. That's this line. What you see in the green is what we are predicting for the next 10. And that doubles that number. If all the indicators are, we're going to continue to do that. The projections are looking very good for this year. And what that would be is in the next 10 years, as a total system between pre-kindergarten all the way up, we would get another 2,521 students, or 14.3% growth increase. So at the same time we need to meet our infrastructure needs, we do have to continue meeting our enrollment needs to make sure we have adequate seats for our students. This is a new chart. I haven't presented this one before. What I did was, out of our master plan, we have a utilization chart. And our desired range is to be in between 80 and 100% utilization of our buildings. So if you look at this going across, it's very busy, but if you look at, this is where we were last year at elementary school with our capacity before we did redistricting. And then what we have is we have blue, which is our state numbers for capacity. The red is the local capacity for our buildings, and the green is how we actually staff and meet that with relocatables. So what we did last year, if you look at Evergreen, this is where we were last year. We were at around 120% utilization of our building last year. And with redistricting, we were able to bring that down, and if you look at it with relocatables, we are within the utilization range where we want to be, knowing that it's going to continue to rise, prompting that need for the new elementary school. We were very successful at meeting the need here. We know that the charter school, they're at capacity, so if you see that one right at the line, that's where they would like to be. All the way across, so far, we're doing good. We are at the range we want to be. George Washington Carver, Lady Marshall Dent, Park Hall, and then Ridge here, with relocatables, they're fine. Those are the schools we've been starting to look at, especially Evergreen, knowing that it's going to continue to rise. But looking at Carver and Park Hall, those are the schools we have targeted. They're going to be relieved through the next new elementary school. Lady Marshall Dent is one that we're going to have to continue to look at the north. It is on target this year, one we're looking at for relocatables. We're going to continue to watch these. We'll plug in this year's enrollment, and we're going to continue to watch. But Lexington Park, continuing to rise. We're going to look at these numbers that are going above. Those are the ones we're going to target for the next new elementary school and make sure that we're providing relief through relocatables in the short term. This is the same chart that I did for the total enrollment. I broke it down to elementary, middle, and high. When you look at this number here and you look at this chart for elementary school, that's about a 14% growth factor over the next 10 years for elementary school. At middle school, it's about a 13% growth increase, and at high school, it's about a 15. But they're smaller numbers, and they're going to take a lot longer at the middle school. Because you can see over the last couple of years at middle school, we've been flattening out and actually losing students. At high school, we've seen gains, but it's been very slow. And if you look at the elementary school, this is where we've seen our growth. The trends indicate that that's where it's going to continue happening at a faster rate than at middle and high school, based on where we've been. The CIP is fluid. We have time to continue to monitor and see how this is going to go, and if over the next 5 years those trends change, we can move that high school project in a little bit. But this is still indicating that we need the next new elementary school, which is what we're planning for. At the middle school, this is the same chart, and what we can see is that right now, Spring Ridge is the school that is over that utilization rate. We have the addition coming online, and that will meet the need for that school. At the high school level, as we know, Leonardtown High School is the school that is over the capacity and the school that is indicating the need right now for the relief through the new high school. The other schools under the 100% utilization. Again, coming back to this chart, knowing that where we need to be, we do have a high school planned in to meet that accommodation. So what we have before you today are the state project list. For FY17, we have the completion of Spring Ridge Middle School state funding. It is fully funded at the local level. The state last year did not, in their ability to fund, they were not able to fund the last $88,200 of the project. We were able to meet it from a cash flow perspective, so we will be requesting $88,200 from the state for final completion of that funding. We will be asking for the planning approval for the new elementary school to be located on the ELIF property. We're in the final stages of getting the site approved as well for that. We'll be asking the state to participate in a relocatable and metal structure building for the Fairlead Academy. Those relocatables will be coming at the completion of the Spring Ridge project, and we would be using those state units. And then the partial roof at Piney Point is a state project as well. Looking to the future for 2018, we would have the Park Hall roof and HVAC project. 2019, Mechanicsville Elementary School modernization planning approval. In 2020, we have two projects. Would be Green Holly Elementary School, which is a switchgear and HVAC that Mr. Whidden referenced. In 2020 is Hollywood Elementary School roof and HVAC. As Mr. Whidden said, he has already started to repair the Hepalon roof. This would be for the replacement of that project. In 2021, we have two capacity projects. That would be for the new high school planning approval and for an additional capacity at Evergreen for a primary building. But we'll have to watch the enrollment at this point in time to see if that's the direction we want to head or if we need to do something else with that capacity need at that time. We also have in 2021 two roof projects, a partial at Great Mills High School and a roof and HVAC at Dinard. And in 2022, Liddy Marshall Dent, an HVAC and an electrical upgrade. When we look at these HVAC and roofs, there's a new category this year that's called above the ceiling. Just like the limited renovation, they do come out with new categories. For the HVACs, we will be asking for all of those to be above the roof because something we already do, we already look at ceilings, we already look at lights, we already look at Wi-Fi in schools, public address systems, fire suppression. So those are all categories that we looked at, and you only have to do two to be eligible for an above the ceiling. So we've made all of our HVACs above the ceiling renovations. This is the list of CIP projects, including all of the local. They are still processes in work. But the piece that I wanted everyone to look at is with everything loaded in, those project budgets have already been escalated as well. We get to the bottom in this 5-year process. In the upcoming year, given everything we needed to do, we are up $1.9 million in our request for next year. We're up 4.6 in the following year and 1.3, and then this is where we see the big decline because we did move the high school out based on where we were with current projections. But in these 5 years, with everything that we talked about in that beginning and the $17.8 million local increase, in the 5 years we're down $5.6 million still, so it is still a manageable 5-year budget given the increase that went up on the state level of 17.8. That is the CIP presentation. I'll gladly go back and cover any questions you have. But the recommendation we would have for you tonight is that the Board of Education approve the FY17 through FY 2022 State Capital Improvements Program for submission to the Public School Construction Program as presented by staff.
Ms. Lee?
No questions. I really like your presentation, so
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Mrs. Weaver?
I appreciate all the details and everything else that you sent to us ahead of time. I know that right now it's $49 a square foot. Is there any projection? I know that, like you're looking years out from now. So let's say in the next 5 years, are we looking at an increase from the 49?
We would definitely be looking at an increase. Over the last 5 years, average per year increase has only been 9%. So for us to have a 21% increase this year, you have to go back about 15 years to find anything that happened that drastic. What's driving it up right now is prevailing wage and wage rates. The same discussion that Mr. Whidden is having about labor cost is impacting the school construction cost as well, because that labor force is looking for the same wage rates that Mr. Whidden's staff would be. So that corresponding push and pull is happening on both sides of the workforce. So that is a really big portion of it. Minority business rates that are impacting it because there's minority business requirements now. I think as we look forward, do I think it's going to be $49 each year? No. Do I think it'll level out to $15 to $20? I think that's probably a more reasonable rate. But is the industry now realizing that a $49 rate might be acceptable, so therefore it will drive it farther in the future? That I think we'll have to wait and see what happens at bid day in the spring when all these projects start going out. And if the governments and local municipalities can afford that, I think we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a couple questions. On the slide with, and I'm specifically on the elementary school capacity utilization slide, on those schools where the bubble is above whatever the recommended item is and the plan is to watch it and then move relocatables in, how is that aligned with FTEs? So, like, if you determine that, what's up there, Mechanicsville Elementary School, if they need, or who is it, Pine, or Park, or, you know.
In particular, George Washington Carver is one that we are now looking at because we'll have to start working with the staff to see how their staffing is working out. This indicates that there's a need. Then what we have to do is we'll work with the instructional side of the house to see, is there a particular grade level? Is there a particular need there? There may be one that isn't showing up here because there's a specific grade level at another school that is driven higher. For instance, we have a very high population of third graders this year. So that's something that we're looking at. We're monitoring grade levels as well in my office to see if there's a specific need at another school. So we'll be working very closely with instructional staff to see where their need is by classroom, and if there's going to be staffing to put it there. We wouldn't want to put a relocatable somewhere where there's not going to be adequate staffing to fill the relocatable next year.
Right, because that just begs the question, I mean, you can put as many relocatables as you want, but if you don't have the
Exactly.
teachers to fill them, then it
Yes.
kind of doesn't help.
Right. What we do out of my office is we make a recommendation. Dr. Walker and Mr. Smith and Ms. Montgomery, that recommendation goes to them of this is where we see a need based on capacity, and then that's a recommendation that would then come back with us of this is where we think that it's appropriate.
Okay, and then on the high school capacity slide, based on the movement and the shifting of whenever the new high school will be built, and with Leonardtown being out of its current range, is there capacity at the other two schools to eliminate or alleviate the overcapacity at Leonardtown High School or not?
What we would suggest is that right here, you see it's just under with relocatables. What this chart does not account for is that at the high school level, it's a little different. We do have students that are on work release. We do have students that are attending classes outside for the Forest Center, or they're going to
And that does not include that.
to the college. So this does not reflect that. So this does look a little better.
Okay.
We did do a redistricting a couple of years ago. That has now leveled itself out a little, and we've seen the effects of that. I think as we continue to go on, it's a discussion that we've had. We just had this the other day at the Planning Commission.
Yes, we did.
The high school is something we're going to have to consider. The big issue we have is whether we do redistricting, we do a short-term solution in terms of capacity, or a long-term. The long-term is the issue. Knowing that a 1,200 capacity building has to have 50%, which is 600 students overcrowded, we're not going to get to that point for about 5 years. So how do we get to that stopgap? And I think there's options that we can all sit down and discuss as we continue on.
And with high schools in particular, and what we talked about with the planning commission was exactly that high school and the way we're delivering instruction, there's a great deal more flexibility than there is perhaps in a middle school or a traditional elementary school. But coupled with that is actually the incoming freshman class of dare we say it, 2019. The largest freshman class is at Great Mills High School. There are 464 kids in the freshman class at Great Mills High School, as opposed to 442 at Chopticon and 444 at Leonardtown. So if we forecast that out over the next 3 years, we will actually see the effects of the redistricting done 3 years ago that were not immediately realized come into effect, and with the STEM Academy and some of the programs that we've got going down at Great Mills High School, I think that ultimately we are going to see some of that level out.
And it is continuing to. I mean, this chart, if we had looked at this a couple of years ago, Leonardtown would have been much higher.
Right.
So it is definitely leveling itself out.
Okay, last question on, and I'm reading off of my notes, not the slides, but on the one where we have all the HVAC units that are planned.
This one?
Yes. Okay, I have two questions. A, and maybe this is for Mr. Witten, are they gonna make it that far? And then B, if they don't, then what is the plan to shift the funds if they don't?
There's only one up there that I have a concern about.
Okay.
And so long as she plans ahead, I can divert funds to make sure it makes it to,
Okay.
and it's green highlight, it's the only one I have a concern about. And it's just like during my earlier presentation, I don't know if you recall, but I invested some money in making sure that the roof lasted till 2020 at
Right.
Hollywood.
I do remember that.
Yeah, but that's what's good about the plan, is if she can put it out there and let me know where it is, I can stretch if need be to it.
Okay.
And what we can do is, that is in 2020. We still have 2018 and 2019. If we get a little farther in this year and things start to look a little worse than they are right now, we can move that up next year. And we start all over again in January with a new educational facilities master plan. So while we're still doing this plan, we're working on the next year.
Right, it's just
we
good
could
to know
move
that
it up.
that it's still fluid, that it's not,
It is.
this is the date and good luck.
Yes.
Read it.
One of the things, it is. One of the things is Mr. Whidden and I have a very collaborative approach to our work. We are constantly working, right now we're working on an aging school program project for 16, trying to make that funding, it's an additional state funding source, trying to make it work to make something that he has in his area of the department work so that he can get something moving that he needs to. So we're constantly looking at every funding source that we have to make things adjust and move and make sure, because things sometimes do not last as long as he thought that they were going to, because all best laid plans, we know how that works.
That's right.
So we do work very collaboratively together, we're constantly talking, and we will adjust these as they're needed. And, on some of them, you'll see there's a couple of projects that are that have been put through the budget that are 3 air handling units. So in lieu of doing the whole HVAC, we're going to advance those 3 air handling units to make sure that that component is making it.
Can completely understand, as I have the HVAC people coming to my house on Friday. So, you're up, Mrs. Washington.
I want to thank you for the collaborative efforts you had with Mr. Whitting in addressing some of this aging infrastructure that we have, and it's major infrastructure too, that it's still fluid and you can tweak it, and you two work together to meet the needs of this aging infrastructure. So we do have some serious challenges, and we gotta hope everything goes smoothly so that we can maintain our buildings so they will be clean, safe, efficient, and good learning environments and working environments for our students, staff, and community. Thank you.
Well, I would add something to that. It was said during Mr. Whidden's presentation that they are very well kept, and I would be very remiss if I did not add Mr. Varner, our Director of Operations, into that, and Mr. Hartwick, our Director of Construction, Design and Construction. Between the 4 of us, it is a very collaborative discussion on how to make this all work. And if it was not for those gentlemen making sure that they do their due diligence and their jobs to make sure that all of our infrastructure stays nice, the capital improvements program would look much different than it does. So I have to give them thanks. In my presentation, I did not have pictures, but I do have to say, Mrs. Mary Hayden is in the audience. She is the program analyst in my office that much of this background work, all of the data analysis that goes into this, she is my right-hand person on it and is very instrumental in making sure that this gets done. So I would also like to acknowledge that she is a very big component of this project.
And I appreciate the collaboration between all entities to make sure it works in an effective and efficient manner. Thank you.
Now, when we look at the construction costs and those increasing costs and the scarcity of state funding and even the local capacity to cover a number of these costs, it really goes back to the discussion we had at a meeting recently where I suggested that we look at some sort of a comprehensive look at, where are we going, where do we need to be, how are we going to deliver program, not just in the next few years, but really out there, because people keep saying across the state and across the nation that there are big changes in the offing, but they don't talk about what those changes might possibly be. I think sometimes the assumption is just as the years go by, things will change, and therefore, if I cast this broad statement, then I'll be right. That's what it comes down to. I think also when you look at the census projections for this community in terms of the numbers that are expected here, My recollection is that those census projections have been pretty well on target. And I know that for 2025, there's a significant increase. And if you look at the building that's going on, I struggle to understand quite how our building program is going to keep up with the new homes that are being built in the community. On the first day of school visits, driving up, and I've been through Wildwood not that long ago, and yet we come up to Evergreen, and there's this huge open expanse where there are these 3-story townhouses that have seemingly sprouted overnight, and they've clear-cut the dead end of my dead end, or the dead end of my street, to build 64 homes to connect through to Broad Creek. I mean, you look in Leonardtown, the fact that Quality Built Homes has purchased the Wathen property and is asking for that to be annexed in. Huge building projects, and people seem to come in and snap up the homes, so.
Hence the 14% growth we're projecting.
Yes, and I think that's being conservative perhaps, when you look at the amount of building going on. I will commend you and everyone within supporting services, because you are absolutely flexible as can be. You just kind of roll with the punches, but especially the fact that you are always looking for options. So as the changing beliefs at the state level, as a new governor comes in and here's where my priorities are, you have adjusted over the years to make sure that if it was smart growth, those were the kinds of projects we were bringing forward. If it was capacity, then those were the kinds of projects that you were bringing forward. And you're just always looking to maximize the resources that are available, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Mr. Smith?
Just that this is, it's a pleasure to work with so planful a group that really does take into account all of those different things. And it just keeps recycling itself. So like, as you said, by the time we're actually like, well, we finally got this thing done, it doesn't. It just starts the next. And so this rolls into everything discussed today rolls into the budget, which we need to be creating. So what fantastic security it provides, knowing we will always be in work. We will, people will keep coming, we will always be in work.
Children always need a seat in a school.
One can hope.
Yeah, so thank you. Safe, comfortable, attractive student, staff, community. I really like the way that lines up right down there, and it does really capture the work that you do to maintain the things that we provide for our students with the work that you do. Dr. Walker, you are a lucky, lucky man. You are a lucky, lucky man. Thank you.
I think we feel the same way.
And that is very good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, and on that positive note, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that the Board of Education approve the FY 2017, FY 2022 State Capital Improvements Program for submission to the Public School Construction Program as presented by staff.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed?
Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of that work.
Mhm.
It's a pleasure.
Now we just have to get everybody else to approve it and fund it.
Mrs. Montgomery.
Look, it's Mrs. Montgomery. She's been so
I've got
patient.
all the
Patient.
good,
Very
fun,
patient.
feel-good stuff to present, so let me just pull up.
You
Now-
do,
now-
but I gotta tell you, one of your pictures,
Yes.
I pulled it up and went,
Uh-oh.
no, it was the picture of the kindergartner showing that he's the class of 2028.
Oh,
See, that reinforces the work that where will he go to school?
2028!
What will that high school look like?
And where
oh,
will it
that's
be?
funny, that's funny. All right,
That was
well,
an
good
eye-opener.
evening, and thank you for letting me share all of our good news about the opening of school this year. Things went very well, and I know all of you were involved in that. So, in the first day, I want to make sure I'm going the right direction with this. Uh-oh, is this not?
It does not want to work.
It's
Okay.
a
Well, then I'll use
it's a PDF. You're gonna have to just scroll it.
Okay.
There you
Okay.
go.
So we're going to start with just talking a little bit about some staff changes. So we had a total of 19 administrative changes this year. Some are changes, some are additions, like with the addition of Duke Elementary School principal and vice principal, and a couple of other changes. And you got to meet our school-based administrators at the last board meeting when we brought them up here for you to all see. And so I won't go through name by name. We've got 2 pages, but there are 19 of them. At some point, we'll bring back the central office folks so that you can meet them as well. So aside from that, some administrative changes, then we have new teachers, lots of new teachers, 120 new teachers this year. 21.4% of those new teachers are minority hires. We have 1,700 applications on file to fill these vacancies. So we really did have a large candidate pool to choose from this year, and that's great because that gives us the opportunity to select the very best. And we currently only have 2 vacancies, a middle school art teacher and a high school guidance counselor. And the newly hired teachers, they're quite an educated group. Most of them have either an advanced graduate degree or years of experience, or both even. And we had an increase in Hispanic and American Indian and elementary male teachers and African American male teachers at the elementary and secondary level. All good, all goals that we've had to increase that in our school system. So we had a couple of things that helped in the HR department. A main thing was a technology improvement. The digital signatures helped the HR department to process our new hires more efficiently and quickly. So that was really good. All right, so that's the staff so far. And now for the kids, we're going to start talking about our little ones. We have 2 early childhood programs, Pre-K and Head Start. Those are 2 pathways for our kids to come into school. So Pre-K, Head Start. The Pre-K program, it's a half-day program for 4-year-olds, and all schools in the county have access to a preschool program. We identify Priority 1 and Priority 2 students. So if you're a Priority 1 student, you're identified based on economic need, and the remaining spaces are filled with our Priority 2 students, which are students that might have another identified risk factor. So we have 760 pre-K spaces. We run our pre-K with AM and PM sessions, 20 in the AM and 20 in the PM. And we have highly qualified staff, highly qualified teachers, and paraeducators in each one of our programs. We do keep a few spaces available in each program, so if we have enrolling a Priority 1 students, that we have space for them at the beginning of the year. So the second program is Head Start. And Head Start is a federally funded program. It's actually funded through the Office of Health and Human Services. And that is for 3- and 4-year-olds, and similar to Pre-K, except Pre-K has a curriculum that's aligned to the college and career readiness standards. And Head Start has a different curriculum. It's called the Frog Street curriculum. They have also aligned their curriculum to the college and career readiness standards, but they do have a different curriculum. There's 4 schools that have Head Start, and it's Banneker and Green Holly, Greenview Knolls, and Mechanicsville. And for the Head Start program, we have 165 spaces. Currently, 163 students are enrolled in those spaces, so we've got 2 left. And we have 80 full-day 4-year-old slots. So the 4-year-olds that are involved in Head Start are not in a half-day program, they're in a full-day program. And 85 half-day slots for our 3-year-olds. Today was their first day of school because we start them a little later than everyone else. So they came today. And all during the past week, the staff has been involved in visiting homes and going out so that they can get to know the kids and the families and make their transition to school a little bit easier. All right, so on to buses, transportation. This year and in a couple years past, we have relied on posting our bus routes to the website. And also, more importantly, we have something called the school bus stop locator on our website. And as Dr. Walker and I talked today, that is actually a more accurate way for people to get information, because we post the bus routes, but they're fluid because they change as we get feedback from community members. So maybe it's not updated as quickly as a route changes. So going with the school bus stop locator is definitely better. On August 17th, the drivers had their dry run where they ran their routes without kids, no issues. And transportation spends a great deal of time arranging not just the bus routes for our general population of students, but also for individuals who have special needs, looking at our pre-K students, our Head Start students, our special needs students in general. So that's all the things that they're working on planning bus routes for. All right, so on to day one, August 19th, last week. Here they come, excited students grabbing book bags. We welcomed on the first day of school 18,006 students, because our Head Start students hadn't started yet. They were welcomed by very happy teachers and administrators and support staff. This is a picture, as you can see, Miss Gilman, very happy over there, welcoming kids at Hollywood Elementary School. Very organized. We've really gotten quite good at supply lists and making sure that everybody knows everything that they need. You can go to any store and get a school supply list. They keep them right there on hand. Of course, we post them to the website and we send information out, newsletters. And just to kind of put a little plug for our community, they are incredibly generous with supporting our needs in the school system. And when I came to central office, I had no idea just how generous the community was. They're contacting us, different organizations everywhere. Some of them want to adopt a specific school because it's in their community. Some of them are just sending things to Dr. Ridgel's office for us to distribute wherever the need is. And others are just going directly to the schools. It's overwhelming with the amount of resources that the community has provided to help us with kids that might have some financial needs. So technology, okay, we, right now, 1,000 machines, laptops, and desktops were swapped out at schools. And by swapped out, what I really mean by that is that they were either, somehow re-imaged or repaired or updated. So we didn't have 1,000 new machines to deploy. But there were some new machines, because Duke Elementary School had new machines that went out. So there were some new ones. But so 1,000 swapped out just means all of those things. We purchased new servers and storage and a network firewall to protect our computers and enhance network security. 14 of our sites have the voice over IP phones, and by the end of this school year, we're hoping to have the remainder schools all set with that technology. We added 300 new access points across the district, and the IT department is implementing a new help desk system to help people get their requests for technology repairs met in a more efficient way. So, and most importantly, we are going to stay tuned in for the unveiling of the new SMCPS website, right, Mr. Smith? That's coming kind of soon?
We are working on it as we speak.
Very good. More technology. So currently we have 6,600 laptops, 6,500 desktops, 6,000 iPads, 1,070 interactive boards, 180 MacBook Airs. We've increased our internet bandwidth by 500 megabytes. All good, all very exciting. All right, so this was kind of the highlight and new information to share, and we've already had the other side of the house sharing with us about the renovations and the project. So we opened a new elementary school, Captain Walter Francis Duke, and we're renovating Spring Ridge in the middle of that project. So I'll start with Duke. 597 students are currently enrolled. The capacity is 664, so there is some room for growth. There's 2 campus classrooms. They are designed to be LEED Silver schools, and what LEED is, it's a green building certification program, and we've earned points to have silver status, but we're requesting gold because we think we might have enough points for that. So that's all good. Duke recognizes all branches of the military service, and one way that they're doing that is they have, I don't know if you've all been to Duke at this point in time, so they have some character trait words in the lobby as you come in. And I just wanted to share that Ms. Ramsey, the principal, and her staff, they are incorporating those character traits into the character education program at their school. And I thought that was pretty cool. So the floor has courageous and loyal and responsible and trustworthy were I think the ones that I thought that was pretty neat. A neat way to incorporate what they have in the school into their character ed program. All right, Spring Ridge Middle School, as you know, experienced a fire in April of 2013. It was kind of amazing that our Division of Supporting Services was able to go through the entire process to design the project and then award the contract in a year. They had the groundbreaking was in June of 2014. And the project is projected to be completed in December of 2016. The project consolidated the STEM classrooms, got rid of the pod system, which I was the principal of Spring Ridge for 5 years, and that's a really, really good thing to get rid of the pod system. And it's 50% complete to date. I do want to take a moment to recognize the Division of Supporting Services because they work so well to support each one of those schools and their staffs. Dr. Walker, Mr. Hartwick, and other folks at the Division of Supporting Services tonight. It's just an amazing effort how they came together. They worked with the principals. They responded to needs. I know how busy they are all summer long, but if they had one of those principals calling them saying that they had a need that they need to get met, they were all over it. So I do thank you for that and for making the priority on the instructional side of the house. Thank you very much. All right, school meals. Menus are available online, computerized points of sale that allows us to collect data on what it is that the kids are buying. We have the My School Bucks where parents can go online and put money into their children's account and also to track their purchases. PTA, PTO, we want parents involved in our schools. I definitely want to stress and emphasize that. Their involvement benefits the school community and absolutely has an impact on supporting their kids. The schools love to collaborate with parents. We want the parents to be involved and to collaborate with us. So parents getting involved help us to build a bridge between home and school. Definitely what we're trying to do. Okay, the second most important thing to doing the right thing is to communicate with people that you are doing the right thing. So I'm going to share with you just a few ways that we're communicating with our community. Right here, you can follow us on Twitter, and we definitely want you to. If you see right here, there's a picture of Miss Washington and Jill Mills and students at Esperanza Middle School. That's from our first day of school visits. So that's one way you can connect with us. We also have a Facebook page. And if you get an opportunity, go to the SMCPS Facebook page and check out all of our first day of school pictures. Very, very nice. A lot of fun. And there's also some informational videos on there that can really help you if you want to get some information, like, for example, how to download the Hack app. You have a little YouTube video there that teaches parents how to do that. So very helpful. You can visit a school website. You can visit the SMCPS website. You can use, the principals use School Messenger, and sometimes we do at the central office level, which puts a phone call out or an email out to families. Lots of good ways to communicate. Of course, Twitter and email and communications. You want to find a way to connect with us. eSchool Plus, we are continuing to use our student information system, eSchool Plus, home access center passwords. They're carrying over from last year, and the schools have been providing new passwords for those who are requiring them. And there is the new Hack app that's available on smartphones. So I'm sure students are going to be very excited to hear that their parents can download the Hack app and right there on their smartphones and have all the student information right there on their phone, live, current, up to date.
Check it in real time. The splash page on it tells you what the grades are for all the assigned work that came in, as well as if they were on time or tardy, or it's really quite a bit of power right in one's hand.
It is quite a bit of information. It is. All right. And of course, we do want to know if your students are absent from school. So parents that are watching this today, please, you want to make sure you're reporting an absence. You can go right to a school's website and just click on Report a Student Absent. It's very, very easy. Or send in a note or call or whatever so that we know that your child is home and that you know that they're home. And that's it. We are looking forward to another great year. It was a very smooth opening.
That is just the sweetest face, but I'm telling you, when I
Isn't
saw
that
that,
cute?
oh, what a reality check that was.
That is really cute. It is.
Whoever shot those three pictures, that will be with that child as he becomes a young man and a man, and that's just such a fantastic shot.
Oh, yes, absolutely is.
Yeah, very cute.
Very well done.
Okay. Any comments, Ms. Lee?
Um,
Since you have first-hand experience the first day of school.
I really like your presentation and all the pictures. I did, some question has been floating around in schools with students about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So, students are wondering if the Wi-Fi is going to be opened or stay closed as it was towards the end of last year?
That's such a
That
good
is a
question.
fantastic question.
I
I will-
Closed.
Yeah, I would
Right.
tell you that,
Ew.
I would tell you that right now, until we feel confident that we're able to deliver consistent service to all of the system-owned and operated wired and mobile devices, we're probably not gonna let all of the children and their devices start climbing on. At the height of it, we had more devices attached than we had students. So I don't know how exactly that happened, unless they were carrying multiple devices with them, so.
Well,
but-
they might be phones and
Right.
iPads.
iPads,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Right.
They might be.
But that's a great question, and
A
that's
great
certainly
question
something
for
we're gonna
the
be talking about.
superintendent
Yeah.
student advisory committee.
I would say that that's a great thing for the
Yeah.
superintendent. student
I
advisory
agree,
committee.
I agree.
Good
I would love that.
discussion.
Yep.
Make the case.
That is all. Thank you.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yeah, could you explain, what is the LEED, L-E-E-D, silver?
Yes, I can do it at a very basic level, and Dr. Walker might be able to give more information. Let me see, I'll tell you what I
Actually,
know about it.
the-
It's a green
it's a green
building
school.
certification program.
Right.
Yeah.
And we receive points depending on the recycling of building materials that we do. So anything that isn't utilized or is damaged or whatever, it depends on how you handle materials. It also depends on the green features that you have in the schools. So the fact that the way the water's treated, handled, various things like that, all of that you receive points for. And it's a national
You get a
certification.
great banner.
They-
You get a fabulous banner to put in
Right.
your school.
But but the point of it is that you have a school that has lower energy costs and has a lower carbon footprint, and that it is better for the environment. And that's the push in achieving that status. So somewhat it's bragging rights, but at the end of the day, it's, you hope that the cost you have to put in order to have some of these materials is recovered in the savings that you achieve.
Well, and we're also trying to reinforce with our students to be conscientious environmental stewards of the planet. And so LEED certification and all of the conversations and all of the information that's built into those schools hopefully compels at a very early age that we must respect and take care of the world we have.
Right.
The other question I have is, I know you had pre-K was income-based, and I guess that's a different thought than, like, years ago, it was more like educational needs, like if a child was behind, so do you have spots there for that, or is that considered a second priority?
It's, the first priority is definitely income-based, and that's both for pre-K and Head Start. And then the second priority is based on other risk factors, some of which could be academic.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, both are very important, but I guess my concern is if you have a student that's already behind, because of, let's say they have some kind of, like special needs or whatever, that they need to really get on board and start getting,
Agreed.
jump
And
on.
we have the preschool special education program and the infants and toddlers
Right.
program that
okay,
we
so that's-
identify them
that's
at
a
a
whole
very
different-
early age.
okay.
So it is a different group
We're-
of students.
Right.
Okay, so this
Birth
is
to-
different
birth
from
to
when,
21.
like,
Yes.
my kids started many years ago, okay.
Or
Okay.
we have, they're two separate things, but we are meeting the needs of those students as well.
Okay.
The compelling number to realize is we're getting close to 700, 750 kids that are in pre-K, in some kind of pre-K delivery service, when we only have about 1,200 kids at all the grade levels. So we're seeing about 75% of our incoming students, we're interacting with them when they're 4 years old. I mean, we're getting them before they even enter kindergarten. So talk about, setting a strong foundation. This board has been exceptionally committed to that early childhood model and doing everything we can to set up a child for success, from early adoption, all-day K, to, folding in Head Start and into all the program offerings that we have for kids. It's good stuff.
I just want to give one plug for Spring Ridge. When we were there, like I said, Dick Myers was with us and Dr. Walker was with us, that we did ask questions such as, like, why did you decide to design short lockers? And, so there was a lot of forethought into why they did it, so that the teachers and staff could see what was going on. I was like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, there was a lot of forethought that went into the design of the building and how things were, not just presented, but functional.
And when they do design a building, they involve the instructional side of the house for those exact reasons,
those
because they're gonna
teachers,
think
all
of
those
things like
meetings.
that, yes.
TC
yes.
architects.
Right.
And also a lot of the lessons learned in the modernization of Leonardtown Middle School. The sort of living with it and then saying, what would we have changed if we had realized? So,
Well, thank you.
My comment's gonna just be on technology, well, two comments. First on technology, between the Class Dojo, which you referenced, up through the new Remind app that every teacher seems to be using right now. And it's great because they all give you the same code. So, there really should be very little that a parent doesn't know about what their child is doing in school and what their assignments are. I guess I just have a cautionary item that as we keep moving to more technology, I think we still have to be aware that there are people that do not have access to it. And my experience was at Margaret Brent, everyone had the little scan code outside their classrooms that you could scan it and get linked in with their Remind app. There are several students who have guardians who are older and are like, oh my gosh, what is this? And then, and the teachers were very good at, that's fine, you can send email, we can communicate with you in that way. So I think the ability for the teachers to embrace the new technology, but yet still be mindful of what some of the limitations are that other, students have, I think is a very good thing. And then lastly, on the bus routes, thank you very much for posting the bus routes. It is very clear on the website that it is a stagnant list. I do agree that typing in your address is much better, but for all of those parents who had children entering a new school, whether it be elementary, middle, or high school, I think it was good for them to see where the bus is traveling, not only as to where their child was going, but for those who missed the bus and where they can still pick it up. So, I had a lot of feedback on that because I know that I think it opened for Fairlead and the STEM academies before it opened up for the rest of the bus route. So I understand your point, but it was good, even though it is a stagnant document.
Good to do it both ways.
Yep. So thank you for that.
And eventually, the document that is not gonna change will be up and will be pretty permanent. There may be a few changes here and there, but it will get to that.
Right, no, but it was, I think it alleviated a lot of concerns, so. Your turn.
You gave an excellent presentation. It was very thorough, and I completely enjoyed it, and a lot of good things are happening in the school year, the school system, and I know we're gonna have a great year. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you did the highlights really well. One of the things I didn't comment about when I was giving my board report was the fact that when you go in, or at least when I go into our various buildings, each one seems to have a character and an atmosphere each unto itself. And that was really evident. And part of it has to do, I think, with is it a brand new building, staff coming together? Is it a building that's been in place, staff that's been in place for a while? The level of excitement at some places and the just absolute calm and hum of others. I loved going in and seeing all of those pieces, and really, I think in the 5 schools I went to, I saw one child upset, which the number of schools I visited and the number of students in each of those schools, I thought that was really impressive, that the welcoming environments and the willingness of staff to put themselves out to make sure that they were proactively checking with students speaks volumes about the caring nature, as well as their educational prowess. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So-
I agree, our staff did a great job.
Yes,
the
they
opening.
did. So, thanks very much.
The
Mr.
only
Smith,
thing,
it's you.
just, Miss Anna Laughlin, the president of EASMIC, wouldn't be anywhere without teachers in the classroom, right? Absolutely. And I had an opportunity to get out and talk to teachers as they were setting up their classrooms and things like that. And that's just a lot of fun. I mean, we really, I couldn't be prouder of the teachers that we have and the team that you have working for your teachers and working for your students. It's a great team.
Very much so.
Good, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, the
Oh,
next.
just leave that one up.
Oh.
Do you want me to put it back?
No, you're good. You might not get it back.
Who knows what might come up.
We're all ahead right now on technology, so that's not.
There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery.
You're welcome, Mr. Smith.
Okay, and with that, the next board meeting will be Wednesday, September 9th, 2015 at 9 a.m. We will see you then.